Hello, everyone. I'm Monique, and I'm the founder of Black to Business. First, welcome to the Web Monetization platform event today. And I'm Monique, the founder of Black to Business, and I have joining me today is Brianna and TD. And today we're going to talk about why web monetization is the future. So we're going to get started. And also, if you have any questions, we're going to do Q&A at the end. So type them in the comment section to your right of the screen. And I'll briefly introduce myself. I'm Monique, the founder of Black to Business, and my platform focuses on providing aspiring Black entrepreneurs with the tools and resources to start and grow their businesses and taking their knowledge and skills and expertise and turning those into a business. So without further ado, I will let the panel introduce themselves. So TD, you want to start and introduce yourself and tell the people a little bit about you, who you are, and what is it that you do?
Cool. Thanks, Monique. It's great to
Of
be
course.
here. So my name is T. I am a manager at the South Africa team, the South Africa-based team of Coil. I actually joined the team about 3 months ago, so I'm relatively new to this team. It's an awesome team. We've got offices in quite a number of places in the world, and the Cape Town team is where I'm at. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. So prior to joining Coil, I have spent quite a lot of time in the payments industry. I guess it's called the traditional payments industry. So doing various types of work that would serve banks or retailers or processors, etc. But then I got quite interested in the work that Coil is doing, which is thinking about building on open technology, building on open standards, ways that payments can become more and more part of what we do over the internet seamlessly, quickly, easily, unencumbered by interesting and sometimes opaque and obscure rules. So really starting to build out technology and standards on open technology, really, that make it possible to make payments over the internet, make it possible for folks to get paid quite easily, seamlessly, quickly, putting more and more power, I would say, into the hands of people that make content available. So that's the role that I'm in now.
Love it. Thank you for sharing that. And so, Brianna, tell us a little bit about you, who you are, and what is it that you do in your business.
Yes, so hello everyone. My name is Brianna Stewart. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan, and now I'm based in Brussels, Belgium. I am a dancer, choreographer, entrepreneur, and I do a lot of stuff actually. But I'd say the biggest thing that really connects to our panel today is that I actually recently became a content creator that uses Coil and Cinnamon, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. So my interest as a dancer in general is really to create opportunities for dancers. And in this context, especially in the digital sphere. So I created a project called Creative Living for Dancers, where I created my own dance entrepreneurship course, I guess is the best way that I could explain it, while using web monetization, while also introducing web monetization to other dancers by awarding 4 €1,000 dance awards, if you will, to create digital dance films. And those dancers, once again, introduce their work digitally while using this new technology. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Awesome. So today is going to be great because I think it's interesting to hear, when we think about creatives, we also think about like in person, getting the money there. So I think today we want to talk about how can we take that from in person to online and how you all are both, you're benefiting from that, but also TD, how you all have created the atmosphere for creatives to be able to do that. So if we could dive into how Coil really works. So if I'm someone just introduced never heard of it, how does it work for me as a creative?
Okay, cool. Thanks. That's a great question, Monique, to start off with. So maybe I'll start with what we are interested in at Coil, what excites us, what we want to see. We are interested in the web becoming, I would say, more open, as in built on technology that's more open, right? So not proprietary and sort of privately owned and hidden tech, firstly. And we think that's a great springboard or a great way for the internet to become a place that is maybe more fair, more equitable, where folks are able to get paid really for the work that they do, or get paid for access to resources that they make available. So really just thinking about a way for payments over the internet or over the web to become simpler or easier, quicker, built on really sound, let's say sound protocol, sound standards, sound technology, particularly the interledger protocol is what web monetization is built on. Okay, so that's sort of what we believe in at Coil and what we are experimenting with and building out or building on. One of the first areas that we have sort of zeroed in and started to build capability and functionality around is web monetization. And the idea is that a user from their browser is able to make a payment to a website that is monetized. And they're able to do that because they would be a subscriber or they'd have a Quill subscription. That's a flat fee monthly of $5. And with being a subscriber in that way, they'd be able to access any monetized content unlimited really for the period of that entire month. And for the duration of the time that they are accessing that content or using that resource, they'd be able to stream small payments really per second to a creator or to whoever's made those resources available. That is a bit of a game changer because currently, okay, well, let's just say that there are various ways of generating revenue today, right? But a lot of them don't quite put the creator in the center of benefiting entirely from all of the uses or all of the access that has been gained by folks that go to their websites, etc. So really, we're focused on building on this kind of technology and looking at ways in which creators are telling us that this makes sense, that this is starting to be really beneficial to them, and expanding on some of those use cases as we learn more from them, and I suppose as we learn more from partnering up with them, but also from being a bit of a content creator ourselves.
Love it. And I want to come back to that. But first, I want to talk, Brianna, you're creative and you mentioned the many things that you do and how you've been able to use the platform Coil. So I want to talk about your transition from doing it off the web first, and then what made you interested in, monetizing on the web.
That's actually a really good question. Well, I will say that I didn't know much about it up until a couple of years ago, I guess. And it was actually another dancer friend of mine, actually, that told me about it. And at first I was kind of like, it's kind of, you hear something new and you're kind of skeptical, like, whoa, you're trying to change what? Like, how does this work? He ended up just sending me resources, sending me some talks from the founder, actually. And even the way that Titi, I hope I pronounced that right, thank you, sorry, explained it, it's actually quite easy to understand, because even as she was explaining it, and I've heard explanations many times, it's just the word empowerment is the first thing that comes to mind. And me being a creative or even a dancer and being one of millions of people around the world that are putting content on the web all the time, because dance content just viral all the time, I was like, oh, so I can be empowered as a dancer in the digital sphere. That's cool. How? Which kind of led me down the pathway of learning more through my friends. And I've talked many times, which led to me applying for grant for the web, for the Intellectual Foundation and whatnot, which kind of led to this new world that I'm in right now, that I'm trying to introduce other dancers to really try to empower creatives like me or dancers to really take hold of like their talents and skills that they're sharing across the web, whether that's talking about dance or actually dancing. And it's been, it definitely has been a game changer for me, especially because a lot of this is very new. So I'm really thinking about, like, in the future, I really think this is going to catch on because it's so people-centered. And especially as an artist, it's like, we do things live and it's about people, it's about connections, it's about that sharing. And I think using this new type of technology kind of keeps that same human type of like feel and puts it in the digital sphere. So I really enjoy using it, and I enjoy continuing to kind of grow with the technology.
And Brianna, so how has, I think, like the reception been, or like you feel the support for you has been with this? Because, you said you were a little skeptical at first. And so TD also mentioned the fact that people have to pay $5, which is good to do that. But do you feel that you had that support to say, I'm going to go through this website and then I'm going to make sure that you have your money and the benefits of that for you?
So many things came to mind as you were asking the question. So I started off kind of skeptical, and I think as I've been introducing it to other people, it kind of starts the same, right? But I've learned that you have to really try to like speak other people's languages, in a sense that $5 a month is like a cup of coffee. Just don't have that cup of coffee this month, and like you're all set, and you can gain so much access to so many different things. So especially as a dancer, connecting with other dancers, and we're so used to like live and in person, it's where it's at. I've literally had to learn to kind of open people's minds to just something new and the possibilities. Like getting the subscription, holding on to it for a year, which is what, $60 some like for the year, if you will. And then just like testing it out, trying something new. But I will say that when I first learned about it, all of a sudden they're talking about digital wallets and like cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I heard about it, but like, can I what? It's like all of these different things start to get really overwhelming. So I know me as well as other creators using web monetization are actually literally researching to find different ways to kind of take that block away so that people just see it as an opportunity, like any other opportunity that might come across your path. But it's definitely something that we're discussing a lot in hopes that more people will join the community in general.
Perfect. Love that. And I think it's great because, we also see out there, that people are saying a lot of times creatives need to be paid and people feel like they want to do their part. So I think that this is allowing people to feel like they're doing their part. So I'm glad that you shared that. And TD, she mentioned something about sharing, the wallet. And I think even when I think about sharing data and things like that, I love the wonderful things that you are doing is protecting people's data. So talk about how you're doing that.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Monique. Brianna, I really like that, by the way. Like the point about speaking other people's language makes a lot of sense. And we're finding that we need to do that quite a lot, right? So that whatever it is that we're building is relevant and makes sense, but also so that we're not kind of imagining things in one way and folks are having experiences in another. So great point on that. Monique, about privacy. So one of the really important things, it's pretty much one of the key pillars that we decided to, or that that the original team decided to build all of this on, is completely dissociating the identity of the user, right? So there's no way that the Coil extension or your browser can inform your wallet that you're paying or the website that you're paying who you are. So there's no way for your identity, the user, right, the browser's identity to be shown or sort of made available to the wallet. So dissociating that entirely, but also dissociating or encrypting the website that it is that the browser is paying as well. So I'm making a payment to you, right, through the browser, but there's no way for me to know who I'm paying other than the fact that I'm paying somebody who has a wallet at this provider. So that way the privacy of the website is kept completely, right, intact, and so is the privacy of the user. So Quell doesn't have any access to who it is that this person is paying or which website it is that we're paying. We just know that we're paying somebody that has a wallet at this place, right? Privacy on the one end, call it privacy from the sender side. Privacy on the wallet side or the receiver side is I let you know, pay me over here. But pay me over here is encrypted. So there's no way for you to identify or to be able to say, aha, I see that TD has been playing a bunch of games, right? And paying X number of dollars for that. So I heard one of my colleagues refer to it as extreme privacy, if you will, making it absolutely impossible for the browser or the website to be able to determine where the funds are coming from or where the funds are going.
Love that. Love that. So I think it's important for people who are just hearing about this platform to know, like, the privacy is there. So I think that's important. And TD,
I'm sorry to speak over you. There's a really great blog post. I think I'll share it in the comments when we're done. That our CTO wrote about privacy, really, and how we've built sort of the principles that we thought about and the things that were important to baking privacy into web monetization as an offering.
Perfect. Okay. So also, TD, I know that you have a history of working with payment processors. And just from your experience, what do you say the biggest benefit is from traditional advertising models or traditional payment processors versus what you all have provided?
Okay, cool. So maybe let me just start with traditional payment processors. Typically, that world doesn't think about openness in the sense of building on open technology, doesn't necessarily value openness as a fundamental, right? So a lot of proprietary sort of offerings and software and tech, what proprietary typically means is that you may be locked in, you as a user, you as a creator may be locked into whatever it is that I've built, the terms I've built it on. And that will often lead to, then I set the terms in our negotiation, right? I tell you what the fees are. I tell you, right, when you will get paid and how often and so forth. That's typically what traditional payment rails mean. it is true that there are more and more standards that will make it possible for openness to become, I suppose, a part of the more traditional payments landscape. But let's just say that for a large number of the cases, that's been the case. All right, so moving on to maybe thinking about advertising versus web monetization. I like to sort of say that what monetization does is give you options, right? So or alternatives, revenue generating alternatives, or
Mm-hmm.
basically saying that, well, currently you may have several streams or several mechanisms that you use to generate revenue, but a lot of those are typically determined by right? Maybe a large platform, as an example, or they may require for your users to have a very specific subscription, and that would give them access to your particular content, and they need to have other subscriptions for other content, right? So if we look at web monetization as a way for users to be able to access a whole world of content that is monetized, and if we think about the fact that Coil is wanting to build this out so that it's so much more comprehensive in what it enables, in the ways in which it enables for creators to get paid, we start to see that it can be quite powerful, right? Really,
Mm-hmm.
I almost don't want to single out advertising, because once you as a creator are monetizing your website, you can enhance the experience of a user in a number of ways, right? One of them could be giving them an ad-free experience. It's just one of the ways. Other ways would be granting them access to content that maybe everybody else doesn't necessarily have, or preview type of content, or awarding them with X number of points, or exclusive access, or preview access, etc. So I suppose it's just thinking about giving the creator the option to offer an experience that's different while they still are definitely getting paid. So that's the one thing. And I would say that the various terms of including advertising on your content may not be as favorable to the creator. But a lot of the time, they're also not necessarily the best experience for a user, right? It can be quite invasive. I am playing a game, I am navigating your site, I am checking out a really amazing film, and from time to time, I get bombarded with adverts and so forth.
Yeah.
So, think about a way where a creator doesn't have to depend on this kind of revenue, or this mechanism of generating revenue. And yeah, so I think what's really exciting is that we do understand that we're just getting started, right? And creators are also just getting started. And so are developers, right? So folks are thinking about developing interesting ways in which different types of content can be offered in all the way through different industries, not just in the arts. And this just excites us, I would say, every day, right? To even just hear the ways in which the offering that we have currently doesn't quite meet the use cases and the needs that they have today.
And it also makes me think about as far as like when people were impacted by COVID and things like that, you were having to still figure out how are you going to monetize, how are you going to make a living. And so, Brianna, I also want to ask you, like, how were you able to, use the web, like even just your experience with COVID happening, and how you were able to maybe shift, and how you've benefited from monetizing on the web by doing so.
Yeah, I mean, as you guys can imagine, the dance world was hit really, really hard. Arts in general, but dance world in particular was just like, especially because what we do is very like in the studio. It's such a different experience than online. So everything shut down. I know here in Brussels, yeah, it's just ghost town. And I know a lot of friends, even me, I started teaching online just a little bit, but not so much. It wasn't quite the same. Some people wanted to learn dance online, but they really didn't. It was like a lot of ups and downs, basically. And
Figuring it
strangely
out.
enough, figuring it out. Everybody was just figuring it out. Yeah, exactly. And strangely enough, this was actually around the time that I started working on Creative Living for Dancers. The timing was crazy. So I was in my apartment, recording my videos for the dance entrepreneurship and working with the dancers that were somehow creating their films around whatever cities they were located in. But despite this time in history, it did give me time to really kind of dive into the possibilities of web monetization and putting my stuff online and creating my digital wallet, pretty much going through the entire process, as well as getting the word out about it. I will emphasize, I'm sure T will also emphasize too, that this is the beginning stages of web monetization.
Yeah.
And over time, as it grows and flourishes, more and more, more and more people will be sending payments and stuff like that. So it'll be something that is lucrative in the future. But because it's very much so experimental and growing, it was really about, for me, just really about setting up everything as slowly but surely these micropayments have been and are still actually coming in over time. And actually, the more content you create is actually the more income or the more micropayments that you will actually receive. But just like any other type of economy, if you will, it requires more people to be utilizing it for pretty much everyone more or less to benefit from it, whether you're a content creator or a user.
Yeah. And did you feel like, how were you able to stay, I guess, personal with people, with those who you were teaching? Because I know you mentioned that people were like, I don't want to dance online, but how were you able to keep that personal connection?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think that's actually the thing that interests me most about me
Mhm.
diving into the sphere now, especially the web monetization, is how do we keep the human part of it still
Yeah.
alive? And honestly, I'm honestly say I haven't really answered even that question quite yet,
Mm.
because even within the web monetization community, like there are more and more projects being introduced that still try to create gathering spaces that still feel very human in the midst of being at home or wherever you are. So I will honestly say that I don't have an answer to that question, but it's something that as I continue to build Create Living for Dancers and connecting with artists around the world, that we'll be finding new and interesting ways to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, TD, do you have anything to add about that human aspect of it?
I have a thought about it, and it's really just a thought, and I'm probably just picking your brain a little bit, Brianna, actually, based on what you just said, right? So, so if I think about the fact that for some people, we might have been isolated completely, right, from being able to even just see other people, let alone see our actual friends, our loved ones, right? Firstly, and then secondly, getting to understand that in that time particular sectors or folks or groups were hit a little bit harder or significantly harder than others. I wonder if it could be considered an actual human connection. It's different, but a kind of human connection that's meaningful. The fact that I get to see you, as an example of a creator whose work I maybe already know and support, or am getting to know and getting to support. And that just the actual act of me being like, you know what, this is where I want my money to go. So her content is monetized, and I love for my subscription to go towards, funding your work. So I
Mhm.
wonder if that is kind of the world that we're heading towards, where we're not always able to have a face-to-face or one-to-one connection in that way. But the digital space allows our personas, our content, our work to be appreciated, which is a way of making some kind of connection. Maybe it's not traditional, but maybe it's what we get when circumstances call for it that way. So I've sort of started thinking about that as being a way actually of formulating a meaningful connection. Maybe it's not the best, maybe it's not the most authentic, but it's a kind of connection I think that's actually maybe valuable still.
Yeah. Oh, well, what I think is really interesting about your response is it heavily relies on like the what we have two screens and then we have two cameras and we see each other. What I think can be, I guess, nuanced as we grow is the how, right? We already know the what. There's a screen, there's a camera, there's all this technology that I couldn't even explain that happens. But then how can we use our very creative and amazing brains to create an infinite amount of possibilities of how we use this technology that, as Monique was kind of asking, like that kind of makes that connection even closer. So yes, we have screens right now, but what new ideas, what new types of nuances in all these different programs that we have can like bridge that gap even more. So I'm kind of just piggybacking on what you're saying, TD, but I appreciate the what. It's true, it's a way, but those nuances I think will make all the difference.
Yeah.
I agree.
And I think that people, for a lot of people, especially COVID happened, even if they weren't thinking about, being online, privacy, you had people shopping online the most. So it's kind of like you didn't have a choice. And if you have to get with the program. So I think that that's the thing. And it's kind of like people are stuck. They're like, okay, this is not going away. And, it's what's the benefit? It wasn't the worst that I could, take dance classes online. Oh, now I see that I can do this in the comfort of my own home. So I think that people having to reckon with the fact that this is not going anywhere, technology isn't going anywhere. Anything that's new, like Koya has been introduced, is something that's the future, basically. So I think that even if we didn't want it to happen, it's like it's happening.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about what you said is that kind of had aha for me. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but as a dancer, I've been living live in person, and now I'm creating an identity in the digital world. And now Coil is like a resource I can add to that helps to kind of
Right.
grow that. And like, yes, I'm an artist, but there are like, I don't know, wood makers, carpenters. There are all sorts of people doing all sorts of amazing things. And it's interesting to think that this whole world is like its entire like space in the universe that we all can take up. But things like Coil, once again, just kind of create options of how we can engage and how we can potentially create income or how we can connect with other people in different ways.
Right.
Which I guess,
Add value to each other.
Yeah.
right, sometimes it can feel really like not heavy, but like, ooh, two identities, two different places, possibilities. But at the same time, as you guys know, there are all sorts of things being created to just kind of streamline that process and make it easier for everyone. So,
Yeah. So I want to talk about the objections to, the platform. And, TD, I'm pretty sure that there are some objections when you have people you're trying to onboard or things like that who are new. How do you deal with that? And what are those objections that you honestly hear?
So, Monique, would you say that a little bit differently? Objections as in challenges, or
Yeah, people not wanting to use the platform. So they're like, oh, I'm a little hesitant about it,
yeah.
because
Okay,
of this and this. What are those things that
got
they're
you.
hesitant about?
So I think the first one is if I'm saying to you, hey, Monique, you have this awesome content. A different way for you to generate revenue would be through web monetization. Let's go through the process. And you're like, great, that means I can shut down everything else that I'm doing because I'm going to make tons of money over here. We're not there yet, right? So
Mm,
web monetization is not yet generating tons of money yet. It's definitely the kind of technology that is going, I believe, is going to make it possible to be able to do so. And of course, we are also being mindful about learning from creators so that we are making it possible for them to make it a viable living, right, using monetization. So for now, or at least present day web monetization generates revenue at a rate of about 36 cents
mm,
USD, 36 cents in American currency per hour per user, right? So you can see that that's definitely a scale, it requires a whole lot of volume, right? Or a whole lot of traffic consuming your content for you to start making some really meaningful revenue. But this is just the beginning, right? So if I were to talk about a challenge or an objection that folks might bring up right in the beginning, it would be exactly that okay, this is not necessarily going to replace my revenue streams today, but what it does do is set me up for being able to do some really interesting things in the very near future, actually, because we're working on expanding some of what's possible in terms of how you generate revenue and how much, and what you can do in that sense. Maybe that's the most that's the one thing that comes up frequently enough that it sort of rolls off my tongue. Um, yeah, Brianna, are there other types of challenges that you experienced when
mhm,
sort of getting into it?
I actually would just say it was about the same. Oh, I can make
Mm.
money real fast. Oh, I can. Oh, I like, oh, shoot, instant gratification culture. Let's just kind of tone that down a little
Mhm.
right.
bit.
Right.
And I've had to have many conversations emphasizing of just like, this is the beginning. It's something that's kind of like you're in it for I don't want to say in it for the long haul, but if you really want to see as it grows, it will happen. It's just an introduction. So I say yeah, I completely agree to you. It's the same thing.
Cool. Would you mind if I took that a little bit further, Monique, and kind
Yes,
of say
please.
what we've done, right? So, or at least what we're doing to try to talk to, at least alleviating, mitigating, addressing, or maybe even obliterating some of those issues and some of those challenges, right? So, if what's important to us is build a way for or make a way for creators to get paid in a way that is fair, that is
Mhm,
quick, that is fairly deterministic, right? So some of the conversations we've had have led us to understand that actually users and even creators would like to be able, for example, to say, I want to pay this creator this much, as opposed to, there's just a rate that gets paid to them as I consume that content. So being able to either set a price or being able to tip, for example, and say that, that was really amazing, or being able to have access to that resource meant a lot more to me than being able to access a different kind of resource. So making it possible for the user to say X amount to this user for access to this content without necessarily saying, well, actually the going rate is this, 36 cents per hour per user. So that's the one thing that we're building. The second bit of capability is being able to actually just have recurring, a recurring payment that goes off. Maybe I want to support a particular band and I don't want to have to keep making the decision every single week or every single month to make it, right? So recurring payment, kind of like a subscription, but through my web monetization wallet, right? Another would be for, let me think of what I'm missing. So we spoke about sending a particular payment, recurring payments. Okay, so maybe there are 2 or 3 other use cases as well that are escaping me right now, but it's really expanding the capability where today all the wallet can do is receive payment. And we're starting to build out or unlock the capability for the wallet to be able to send payments, right? Oh, I've just remembered. So sorry, a third sort of bit of functionality is enabling the creator to be able to use their same wallet to make payment as well as to receive payment, right? Where today all they can do is receive payment. So it's really starting to unlock what's possible, making it a lot more viable to actually start to generate some really decent revenue, right? Which would start to alleviate some of those initial concerns that we spoke about anyway.
And how are you all dealing with, because, you also mentioned the fact that people have, now they're using like YouTube or things like that, and they have those advertisements in the middle of the video. Of course, I think it's important to talk about how you all are dealing with competition and, people being comfortable on certain platforms and saying, okay, this is okay, but, dealing with competition.
Mm-hmm. So I think talking to the point of openness, what we're not interested in necessarily is for everybody to just abandon everything else and say this is all that we do mindlessly, right? What we'd like to be able to do is for people to consider what the technology and the applications, what the use cases offer, and be able to recognize whether that resonates with their needs, what resonates with them, meets their needs, whether this is a value proposition that actually adds a lot more than it takes away from them. And that way, be informed enough to make a decision that, okay, maybe these are the ways in which I'd like to generate revenue, or maybe this is the exclusive way I'd like to do it. So we're definitely interested still in, the idea of what openness and fairness stand for, right? You would be informed, you would be able to get paid fairly, and you would be able to, in a more deterministic way, make a decision for yourself, right? So in that way, I guess competition isn't really something that we are preoccupied with. What we want to understand is what the pain points are so that we are addressing those for creators and maybe iterating and testing different ways of addressing those needs. So maybe that's on the one hand. On the same hand, but just point number 2 is, as an example, just as one example, you're actually able to monetize your YouTube content as an example, right? So today you can integrate your, you can integrate your Coil account to your YouTube channel and start to monetize your content that way. So I'm just saying that there's also a lot of thoughtfulness around interoperability between existing platforms or existing ways in which creators are already used to generating generating revenue and reaching their audiences. So it's not necessarily about having to think about moving entirely to a different space, although it may very well be possible that when you consider everything that monetization could offer you, it may become quite viable to decide that you want to move things over to a different place. But we're not sort of building it so that you are absolutely required to operate in that way only.
I love that, because I am I think people listening can relate to me, because I'm like all or nothing. So I think it was great that you said the integration part of it, and what other platforms you all are able to integrate with. So I think that's important to note.
Right. So Twitch is another example. It's also, so because web monetization is actually a standard and it's an open standard, developers and innovators are able to, well, as we build out Rafiki is actually the name of the project that will unlock some of the functionalities that I spoke about a little bit earlier on. So as we build that out, developers will be able to start making it possible for folks to monetize content like podcasts and mobile applications and so forth, right? So just from an integration point of view, it isn't exclusively thinking about integrating somebody's Coil, right, subscription or Coil account, but it's actually thinking more about enabling folks to be able to use web monetization, because web monetization is just functionality that Coil has decided to build out on being the first web monetization service provider. So if that makes sense, like our priority is saying, let the web monetization ecosystem become vibrant, right? Let folks figure out how to become digital wallets themselves, right, for monetization, and how to build out capability that maybe that maybe is actually competitive with Coil as a service provider. That would feel like much more of a win than finding that everybody is now suddenly a Coil subscriber and a Coil creator. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. And Brianna, I saw you shaking your head. Yes, in agreement. So as a creative, like how are you able to do it? What are some ways that you are doing, web monetization? Like even if it's Coil
Um,
and how so?
Well, I mean, as a dancer, cinnamon
Yeah.
is where I've been a lot.
Answer.
So I guess the best way to explain it in TD, I'm gonna try my best. So Coil is Coil, yes, and then Coil kind of has like some other offshoots, if you will, of how you can use the technology through Coil. So cinnamon is one of them, and it's for video content. And Coil is actually mostly for written content. That's the best way I can kind of explain that. So as a dancer, I've been posting a lot of videos in particular, and that's where I've pretty much been engaging. I also do have a plugin, for example, in my Chrome, and because I do have the plugin, whenever I do go to, for example, YouTube, if someone, as I watch content, it happens like automatically, pretty much. So slowly but surely, I've kind of been incorporating the plugin or kind of adding myself to other types of sites that are using the technology. For example, there's GFAM there are a couple of social networks, if you will, that are using web monetization, such as GFAM or MG Social. And there are a couple others that I can't think of at this moment. But I will say that if there's anyone interested in hearing more about creators like me that are using it or other like sites, you can go to Story to Go. And there's this amazing woman named Erica, and she created literally a web monetization library. I just looked at it a couple of days ago. It's really comprehensive. And you'll find even my stuff is on there. Everyone's stuff is on there. You'll find all the information you need to know, as well as even community.webmonetization.org, I believe, where you can see all the different projects and talk to people about the community as well. So those are some resources to check out, more sites and more creators as well.
Love that. Definitely. And so I think it's people who are listening are probably interested or likely interested in joining. I want to talk about some case studies or projects that you've seen utilize the platform and some transformative stories that you can think of, TD.
Cool. Thanks, Monique. I think those are some great examples, Brianna, that you've already shared. It's been quite a lot of, as Brianna mentioned, a lot of experimenting, if you will. So if I think of an example, I would say Imager Emerald is another example of a monetized site. Twitch, we mentioned that. So there are quite a number of gaming sites that are monetized as well. And I would say that a lot of it has been, for example, removing advertising, right? So giving ad-free experiences. A lot of the functionality that is going to be more of what you're talking about, like the really interesting kind of intricate, oh, you've done that, is waiting for the project that I spoke about, Rafiki, to come out, right? Where there's a lot more flexibility in being able to send and receive into your web monetization wallet or your Interledger wallet. So we definitely are seeing some really interesting and awesome proposals that are coming through to grant for the web, and they are definitely requiring that the capability be a lot more fuller and fleshed out than what it is currently. But I will say that there definitely is a lot of innovation and desire to build on this technology, and they're just kind of like, hey guys, we need more flexibility with what these wallets allow us to be able to do.
Love it. And how many people are using, or roughly how many people are using the platform now? And where do you see, I think we kind of talk about it, but the future of technology going?
Right. So I think over 4,000 sites have been monetized. So it doesn't necessarily mean that 4,000 sites are actively monetized right now, but over 4,000. And that was since inception, or since Coil was founded around 2019. So that's a pretty decent number. The other number that is probably useful as a reference point is that made over 40 billion payments. So
Wow.
it's not
Yeah,
let me
yeah,
let me temper that down immediately. So 40 billion payments is micropayments, right? So these small payments that
yeah.
would be in micro dollars, really, in that period of time. So it doesn't represent a big value, right? Yet, but it that's the whole point, that we're working towards representing a dollar value that is also equally impressive, but we're not there yet. So I would say that it is definitely this growing environment or growing ecosystem with use cases that are making it possible to become infinitely more lucrative, I would say, as well, and compelling as a replacer potentially.
Well, I think that shows people that people are getting paid 40 billion payments. So
40
people
billion
are
payments,
receiving that
micro
money.
payments, but
Yes,
payments,
yes,
yes.
yeah. So I want to end. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I think you asked about the future of the technology, and,
Yes.
and it's exactly what I spoke about. So what we're currently focused on is this project Fiki, which is unlocking the capability to send payments as opposed to just receiving payments from your wallet, which are some of the examples that I mentioned a little bit earlier. That makes it really exciting, because then the nature of the proposals, so what folks want to be able to do, whether it is building out their own capability or leveraging the capability that Coil itself built out, it just changes the game in that way.
Love it. Brianna, did you have anything to add?
Actually, tedious.
Okay, okay.
Come on.
Because you were like nodding, so I think that means that you're in agreement.
She's
Yes.
like, I know what I've heard. Yeah, girl. That's right.
And Brianna, you use the platform, so I think it's one thing that you think people should consider before joining. And TD, I'm going to ask you as well. So Brianna, what has based on your experience, and I know that you mentioned you share with others, some of the things that people should consider before joining, or they're going to have a good experience.
One thing they should consider. I, the first thing that actually came to mind is honestly considering the entire kind of atmosphere of the digital space nowadays,
Mm-hmm.
with like using Facebook and privacy protection, kind of that whole thing. I think more and more people are really, or users in particular, are really starting to think about like what they put online and why and how they do it. So I guess for anyone that's tuning in, or anyone that's like even slightly kind of worried about all the stuff that you've heard about, new technologies like Coil, for example, is a new way to kind of like rethink that. And if that's something that you're interested in or want to know more about, I suggest checking it out. It's one of many ways to do that. But I think in general, I think, like I said, Coil, like anything else, is something that you just have to like give it a shot. Why not? Go for it, see what happens. And I believe there's so much promise in it, and it doesn't hurt. $5 a month, check it out. So yeah, if you're interested in creating content, and like TD said, it doesn't mean that you can't post elsewhere, right? Because everything is interconnected in some way. It's just one other resource among other resources pretty much to use in the digital space as well.
Thank you.
Nice. I agree.
And TD,
I
would you
agree.
add anything else?
I would maybe add that, I would maybe add that it's important to, I think about the kind of experience that you do want to offer users when your content is monetized, right? So it could actually get as intricate and as interesting as you want, but it could also just remain, exactly the same content that everybody else sees. But maybe being thoughtful about, okay, so for all of the folks that are supporting me in this way, what do I want to offer that's maybe different, that maybe starts to set me apart a little bit differently? Because I think it's possible that could be an enabler to, maybe start to become ever more self-sufficient, if you will, right? Or self-reliant, and having sort of your content speak for itself in that way. I think maybe just the other point would be that you could become a little bit more innovative around functionality that you want to see or that you want to offer. And Grant for the Web, which Brianna spoke about a little bit earlier on, which she's a grantee of, is actually a really amazing organization that funds and backs and promotes projects that are built on the same technology, right? On web monetization, on the interletter protocol. And the idea is that if what Coil is interested in is a web that champions fairness and openness and paying creators in ways that are fair and equitable on the internet, then maybe as not just a creative, not just a developer, but maybe that there's an opportunity to collaborate with somebody else that wants to offer similarly, that wants to build on similar types of technology. So maybe you might consider submitting a proposal to Grant for the Web as a way of adding vibrancy and adding to the use cases and the applications of using web monetization, right? Because it occurs to me that like different points of view are some of the ways in which the magic that I can't even imagine right now will be realized in this space.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, not only different points of view, but just accessibility. The more diverse grantees, if you will, the more people you're able to access in different ways. So I agree with TD. If anyone's interested, grantfortheweb.org, definitely check it out. It was a great experience, absolutely amazing experience.
Yeah.
And is that open, ongoing, or is it closed, open at the?
Ooh, actually, it just closed. Second round just closed, actually. But you can sign up on the website so that you can stay up to date when the next round opens.
That's right. And I mean, we should have a really, we should have quite a good number of iterations still. It's a $100 million fund. It has, I mean, I think less than 10% of those grants have been awarded. So that, there's still a good amount of grants that will be, and that we're, that Grant for the Web is really, really interested in finding great proposals on. And I think the other thing is, not to be too stuck on something, an idea, a proposal being absolutely perfect. Think about the fact that we at Coil are experimenting ourselves with this technology still, right? So you might have something that actually 2 or 3 iterations down will be absolutely on point, but the first 1 or 2 iterations might not be exactly what it needs to be. But I think getting even the conversation going as you submit your proposal to Grant for the Web is a really great way to start refining that idea. It may even still lead to you being granted something and sort of building it out as you experience your I guess your viewership as a creator, but also as folks engage with your content.
And to piggyback off of that, T just said some amazing things. So yeah, me, Creative Living for Dancers didn't exist before this grant came along. I mean, it was in my head, but I was like, I don't know. Got the application, I was just like, the application helped me flush it out. And I was like, yeah, digital space, yeah, dancers, yeah. And I'll honestly say that the first iteration of it, like, I accomplished quite a bit. I really set the foundation for it. I imagine myself by the second, third iteration, it's gonna be dancers in the digital space and web monetization. It's just every time I talk about it, just gets me like so excited. I'm like a geek for all this stuff.
Yes.
That's crazy. So yeah, friends, we do not have to be perfect. Like, it's true. They're experimenting. We're experimenting. All of it's just like a big old experiment. And I guess as this content creator that has created, it's just the more and more you do it, especially when you have you're creating content about something that you're really passionate about, or you're a tech person who's really passionate about it, that they're pretty much supporting your passion of what you want to create in the digital sphere. So I highly encourage people to, check it out. And dancers, web monetization, this girl right here, she's going to make moves. I feel it.
You are the best like advocate because you make
it's really exciting actually.
I love that. And I think people get
I agree.
Yeah, I think people get intimidated when they think about all of these things, especially when it comes to funding or when it comes to dealing with money in general. And I think that today has really like alleviated some of those concerns that people have, and saying like you said, your idea wasn't perfectly fleshed out, but still. And I think that's the thing about just go for it. So yes, I appreciate it. This has been wonderful. I want to make sure I mention that if there are any questions, please put them in the chat. But I also want to give you all the opportunity to just share some things that are going on. How can people connect with you? Anything that you have coming up, and how can they support you?
I guess I can start. If anyone's interested in seeing what I have created, feel free to go to creativelivingfordancers.com. From there, you'll actually see the 4 digital dance films that the dancers created. 2 things: you can get the Coil plugin easily put into Chrome, and from there you can actually see the videos directly from your browser. Otherwise, you'll have to go through getting the subscription and going to Cinnamon. And also through Cinnamon, you'll see all of the dance entrepreneurship videos that I've created. And of course, I'm a dancer and that is my audience. But if you're a creative person or interested in entrepreneurship, these videos are also, I think, would be interesting for you as well. If you want to reach out to me, feel free to email me at contact@creativefordancers.com. If you have anything related to grant for the web projects, I'm literally an open book. Anything I can do to help you, I'm here as a resource.
Perfect.
That's
Thank
awesome,
you,
Brianna. That's awesome. I would say quill.com is a great place to start, just if you're a creator and are trying to figure out what to do. It's actually I think of it as a two-step process that's reasonably straightforward from a creator's point of view, which is setting up your wallet, right? So that there's a place for you to receive your payments, and then updating your site so that your site knows that it's now monetized and should send money to this place, right? Two-step process for a creator. And then for a subscriber, it is a three-step process. Getting your Quill subscription, $5 a month, flat fee, right? Just knowing that you'll be able to start supporting folks out there. Second step, Brianna, thank you for mentioning it, is getting your browser to be web monetization enabled, essentially, either getting an extension for your desktop browser or using Puma browser, which is a really awesome mobile browser that is natively actually web monetization capable. And from there, you would just log into your Coil account, and whenever you visit a monetized site, they start to get paid. So, fairly simple as well from the subscriber's point of view. So Coil.com gives you a good amount of information on what to do, whether you are a subscriber or a creator. And then grantfortheweb.org is a great place for you to check out if you might have some idea about how to build out some kind of functionality on this or some kind of offering on this open technology. Maybe if you want to get a little bit more understanding of web monetization as well, you could check out webmonetization.org, or is it .com? I hope that I didn't make a mistake over there. But that's just a great resource for you to get to understand a little bit more about what web monetization is. Quell.com, grantfortheweb.org, webmonetization.com.
And Story to Go Web Monetization Library and community.webmonetization.org to meet other people in the web monetization community.
I love that.
Yes.
Thank you, Brianna.
Yeah, I think you're not alone. You're not alone. So there are resources out here for you. So yes, thank you all for sharing that. And we're gonna wrap it up. And I'll just say I'm Monique. It has been a pleasure interviewing you both. And anyone who want to connect with me, I'm at black2business.com, or I have a podcast called the Black to Business Podcast, so you can check us out.
Black to Business. Love it.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you, ladies, so much for joining. And shout out to Black Web Fest for putting this event on.
Shout out to Black Web Fest. Thanks, you guys. Great to meet you guys.